This is your health tip for today. Our health tip is titled Exposed. Now, if you hear on the radio, you hear on the television, a lot of places have been exposed to someone who had the coronavirus or who tested positive for the coronavirus. And people have been given instructions. Every time we hear another exposure, we get a certain level of anxiety. So we just wanted to touch a little bit on the whole thing of being exposed. So the first thing is, I've been exposed. What does that mean? So by being exposed, it means that you were in an environment around someone who may have had active coronavirus disease or someone who tested positive for the coronavirus. So therefore, there is a risk that you would have gotten exposed to the virus. Okay. So the question now is, so I've been exposed. Why did they send me home? So your workplace may have sent you home, or they may have called you to say, hey, you've been exposed. Why did I get sent home? You were sent home because immediately after an exposure, it is advised that the people who have been exposed go into quarantine. So the next question is, what is quarantine? And in fact, the other question is, how does quarantine differ from isolation? So both quarantine and isolation are two important things that help to prevent further exposure to other people. So it helps the public. And isolation now is for people who are sick, who are already sick, where you keep them away from people who are not sick. Quarantine is for people who are well or who are not yet sick. So when you're told that you should go into quarantine, quarantine separates you and it restricts your movement to a certain extent because you have been exposed. So quarantine ensures that you are separate from people and restricting your movement. And now, under quarantine, you are under an observation period to see if you become sick. So, the next question that the average person would ask is, hey, so I've been exposed. I was exposed at the workplace, or I was exposed somewhere else. Why don't they just test me right away? And that's a good question, yes. But what you have to understand is this. If you got exposed today and you take a test today or you take a test tomorrow, it's likely going to be negative. Why? Because the virus would have to find its way into your mucous membranes, get absorbed into your body, make its way into your cells, start its life cycle, and start multiplying in your cells and then start manifesting itself. So now your body starts to shed virus, and that's when your test will come back as being positive. So therefore, the long and short of it is that someone in quarantine would take anywhere to up to 14 days before they manifest symptoms, as in 14 days after they have been exposed. In fact, most of the people, a greater percentage, would have started to show symptoms on or before day 11. So therefore, that's the reason why if you've been sent home in quarantine, you would not just get tested right away. And there's no benefit in getting tested right away. In most cases, you may look towards about 7 or so days, or sometimes up to 14 days before you get tested. So now, Doc, I'm in quarantine. What do I do? So the average person, they got sent into quarantine. Immediately they get scared and they start fretting, and they spend the next few days fretting, and then they will get sick. Please, you have to understand, right? You remember the Bible says, who through thought can add a cubit to his stature. What that means is this: if you spend the time just worrying and worrying and worrying, that's only going to depress your immune system and make you sick. If you are told to go into quarantine, here's what you do. So first, you get home. You now are going to restrict yourself to a place where you do not have exposure to other people. So if you're self quarantining at home, you now are going to occupy a room which will be yours and yours only. If your bathroom is if you are using if you have a room which has its own bathroom, that is perfect. That is even better. If you are in a household that shares a bathroom, then you have a couple of options. One is that if you're sharing a bathroom with other people now, what you have to do is this: allow everyone to use the bathroom first. Then you would be the one who goes in and uses the bathroom last. As soon as you use the bathroom, then you have to wipe down the entire bathroom with a bleach solution and then let it sit for another hour or so before anyone else can use the bathroom after you. All right. Now, what else do you do in quarantine? Ensure that you get lots of rest. Bring your phones or bring your communication equipment, because during quarantine you can easily communicate with family, with friends. You may be able to even catch up on some work. You may be able to now start writing a novel. You may do something with your time. During quarantine, you are also able to go outside, get exposure to some sunlight, and spend some time in nature. However, you need to do this by yourself. Quarantine is not a prison sentence, but you have to be disciplined in doing the things that are necessary to prevent spread to others while monitoring yourself to determine whether you are getting any symptoms. So that would include temperature checks, which are done, I think, most times twice daily. Make sure you eat properly. So you eat your healthy foods. All right. You drink a lot of fluids. You avoid a whole lot of sweet stuff and a lot of junk because you do not want to depress your immune system. All right. So you can walk through quarantine. And in fact, most people who come out of quarantine, they do not get sick. But if you do, that's another bridge that you can cross. It's not going to hurt to get your supplements of your vitamins to ensure that you remain healthy. But the biggest thing is not to worry. So, of course, this virus, this pandemic is around us. But if you stay informed and you follow the directions and you keep trusting in God, we can all make it through this. Have a wonderful Sabbath and don't be exposed.